This is you. You just dissolved 3 unfortunate men in acid and buried them under several meters of dirt. Maybe they have families waiting at home, watching the door with fragile hope. But you also have people waiting for you. And in this hell, the logic is brutally simple. If you do not do this dirty work, you will become the next ingredient inside the barrel. You are a regular guy. Or to be brutally honest, you are a loser. You were born into poverty and misery stuck to your skin like a chronic disease. You dropped out of school before finishing high school, and now your hands are full of calluses from working as a construction worker with a miserable salary of 6,000 pesos a month. That money is barely enough to survive, not to live. Today, you are going to your class reunion not because you miss anyone, but simply because the rich kid promised to pay for all the food. At the party, the air reeks of smugness. Everyone talks endlessly about the American dream, about their college degrees and their luxury trips. When the inevitable question comes up about what you do for a living, the room goes silent. You answer in a low voice. Immediately, the smiles become forced. They pat you on the back and tell you empty phrases like, "All work is dignified," but their eyes say something else. It is a look of pure contempt towards someone from the lower class. You just smile and focus on eating the free food, swallowing your humiliation along with the meat. Although on the outside, you pretend you do not care. On the inside, your self-esteem is falling to pieces. You look at your peers, they are already business owners or managers, while you, a grown man, still have to rack your brain thinking about which dinner of the week you must skip to have enough money to buy a pack of cheap smokes. You get home dragging your feet after that party full of hypocrisy and phoniness. You throw yourself on your old bed and take out your phone looking to numb your brain with social media before sleeping. Suddenly, your eyes stop on an ad that seems too good to be true. They are looking for experienced construction workers, no education required. The salary is 3,000 pesos a week with room and board included. Your first instinct is to keep scrolling down the screen. Life has beaten you down enough to know that there is no such thing as a free lunch for people like you, and that when something shines so bright, it is usually poisoned bait. But then the image of the class reunion hits you again. You remember those looks of disgust, that fake compassion from your successful former classmates. Rage makes you stop your finger. You decide to send a message, promising yourself that at the first sign of a scam, you will block the contact and continue with your miserable life. To your surprise, the response is immediate and strangely professional. There are no spelling mistakes. They do not ask you for money up front. They schedule you for an interview tomorrow in an office building right in downtown. Scammers usually hide in alleys, not in high-level corporate zones. You decide to take the risk. You think that in the worst-case scenario, you will only lose a few hours of your time, and honestly, your time is not worth much anyway. The next day, you show up at the indicated address wearing your best shirt, the one you reserve for weddings and funerals. It is a modern office with air conditioning and secretaries who smell like expensive perfume. Everything in that place screams professionalism and success. The interviewers are engineers with spotless white hard hats. They bombard you with technical questions about concrete mixes, drying times, and material strength. You answer with confidence, feeling that finally someone values your experience. When you work up the courage to ask why the salary is so high, they do not get annoyed, but rather explain calmly. They tell you that an eccentric tycoon wants to build a luxury resort in the middle of the virgin jungle. The work is hard, the climate is hellish, and the isolation is total. That is the reason for the gigantic pay. They are buying your endurance to the hostile environment, not just your skill with the shovel. They warn you that it is a limited time opportunity. The transport will leave in 48 hours to meet the deadlines. If you want the money, you must sign the contract and get on the vehicle. You go back home and start investigating on the internet. You search for the name of the company, and to your surprise, you find real references in construction forums and news about tourist projects in the area. It is a legitimate construction company. Your doubts evaporate completely. You are euphoric, thinking that you just won the job lottery. You decide that you will go sign that contract, convinced that it is the opportunity that will change your life forever. The big day arrived. You say goodbye to your family with a mix of nerves and hope, promising them that when you return with pockets full of cash, you will give them the feast they deserve. Upon arriving at the office, the atmosphere remains impeccable. They present you with an extensive contract and ask for very specific details, like your parents' exact address and your siblings' phone numbers. You hand over that information, thinking it is pure red tape. But then they ask you for something unusual. They put you in front of a camera and demand you record a statement affirming that you are going of your own total and absolute free will. They explain that by working in the deep jungle, there are life-threatening risks from wild animals or tropical diseases, and the company needs to legally protect itself against any accident. The logic is cold but convincing, so you accept without putting up a fight. With the video recorded and the contract signed, you get on the bus along with other men, the engine roars, and the vehicle moves forward, taking you toward the meeting point. After 2 long days of travel on back-breaking roads, you finally arrive at the supposed paradise. But upon getting off the bus, reality hits you in the face. There is no luxury resort under construction. You only see a miserable camp with houses made of sheet metal and rotten wood. A man with a scar on his face and a look that would make your blood run cold comes out to greet you. He introduces himself as the manager, but he looks more like a butcher. His first order is dry and direct. Hand over all cell phones and any communication devices right now. The crowd erupts in protests. Many refuse, shouting that they have rights and that they need to talk to their families. The manager does not argue. He does not get angry. With a psychopathic calm, he pulls a gun from his belt and fires a bullet into the air. The blast silences the complaints in an instant. The smell of gunpowder fills the air, and fear takes hold of your guts. He lowers the weapon, points it directly at the trembling group, and lets out a sinister laugh. With a raspy voice, he says,
"Welcome to hell, bunch of losers."
After turning over every last trace of your personal identity, they drag you along with the other wretched souls toward a dilapidated barracks. An enforcer with an unfriendly face points to a pile of old clothes lying on the ground like trash and barks an order at you. You have 5 minutes to get changed. You grab a uniform from the pile. They are all identical, dirty and worn out. The only difference is a number stamped on the chest and back. You put on the outfit and look at your reflection in a piece of broken glass. Now you are number 67. The manager gathers the group and declares that your names no longer exist. Now you are just numbers in his inventory. He leads you to a structure made of rusted sheet metal. Upon entering, the smell is the first thing that hits you. A nauseating mix of industrial chemicals, acid, and cooked meat that burns your throat. The scene is a living nightmare. You see rows of steaming metal barrels, where other men with the empty gaze of the living dead stir a grotesque stew of human limbs. Some bodies are whole, others are already pieces floating in the bubbling liquid. Your stomach churns, and you vomit violently, just like the rest of the group. Panic overtakes one of your companions. Terror blinds him, and he runs toward the exit, screaming. It is a fatal mistake. A sharp gunshot rings out, and his body falls limp to the ground with a smoking hole in his head. He points the barrel of his weapon directly at you. "You 67, bring me that trash." Your legs are shaking like jelly, but the fear of dying is a powerful motivator. You drag the heavy corpse to his feet. The manager hands you a huge rusted butcher knife. He coldly orders you to cut off the corpse's hand. You freeze. The knife weighs a ton in your sweaty hand. You look at the lifeless face of the man who just a minute ago was breathing beside you. Your mind screams not to do it, that this is insanity, that you are a decent human being. You feel like you are going to pass out. Your morality fights against your survival instinct in an agonizing battle. The manager aims at your head and whispers, "Either you do it right now, or you become the second ingredient in the soup." You know he is not lying. You close your eyes, ask for silent forgiveness from a god who has clearly abandoned this place, and with a choked cry of desperation, you bring the knife down with all your might. One after another, your companions step forward for this macabre loyalty test. It is a brutal and instant natural selection. Those who hesitate, cry, or refuse out of morality receive a bullet in the head, becoming immediately practice material for the next in line. At the end of the carnage, the original group has been reduced to half. The manager nods satisfied with his new purged workforce and orders them to clean up and rest. The dinner is an insult rock-hard bread and a cheap tomato sauce that looks like coagulated blood. Although your body screams with hunger, the memory of the sensation of the knife in the flesh closes up your throat. You go to sleep with an empty stomach, praying that this is just a fever dream. But the sun rises, and hell continues. They drag you back to the industrial warehouse. The manager holds a bag of white powder and begins his masterclass with the enthusiasm of a passionate chemistry teacher before his students. He introduces them to caustic soda. He explains with scientific detail how they must fill the drums with water and this corrosive chemical. He teaches them that upon boiling the corpses in this alkaline solution at high temperatures, the black magic of chemistry happens. The soft tissues, fat, and proteins dissolve, breaking down everything that makes a person human. The result is a viscous and brown liquid that he calls with a sick smile, the soup. When this macabre broth cools down, your task is to empty it into clandestine pits that have already been dug. But the dirty work does not end there. The large bones and teeth do not dissolve easily. You must fish them out from the bottom, take a heavy hammer, and crush them until they are fine dust, to then scatter them in the brush so they blend in with the stones and natural earth. Upon finishing his lesson, he imposes the production quota. Each one must process 3 full drums a day. If you do not meet the quota, you will receive severe physical punishments. And if you fail more than 3 times, you automatically become the raw material for the next shift. Under this death sentence, you start working. The chemical steam burns your eyes, and the smell makes you vomit bile time, and again. But your hands do not stop, driven by the absolute terror of ending up boiling inside that metal barrel. The shift ends, but the terror does not rest. The manager reviews the production with the coldness of an IRS auditor. Those who did not meet the quota of the 3 barrels are dragged to the center of the yard. Their screams of pain under the guards' beatings become the only background music before sleeping. That is how the days pass one after another in an infinite loop of horror. You get up, you cut, you boil, and you pour. Over time, something inside you shuts down. You stop seeing faces, stories, or families in the bodies you dismember. Your mind disconnects from your hands to protect itself from madness. You no longer see human beings. You only see pounds of flesh and bone that must be processed. You become an efficient machine, an automaton covered in blood and soot that only lives to fill barrels. However, not everyone has your capacity to shut off their soul. The psychological pressure breaks many. Some companions start talking to themselves, others cry uncontrollably while they work, and some, overcome by despair, try to run toward the dark jungle. But the manager has eyes everywhere. Their escape attempts are pathetic and brief. The most terrible thing is not seeing them die, but what happens after. The next day, the manager hands you the fresh raw material for your shift. And as you lift the axe, you recognize a tattoo or a scar on the skin that you are about to cut. Yesterday, you shared your hard bread with that man. Today, you have the task of turning him into soup. And you do it because in this place, the only option is to be the cook or to be the food. One day, while your hands search the pockets of a corpse before processing it, your fingers touch something solid and rectangular. Your heart seems to stop. It is a cell phone, and the screen lights up. The hitman, out of arrogance or laziness, forgot to check this body. You have a cursed miracle in your hands. You could use it to call for help, to send a signal to the outside world. But the risk is absolute. The danger does not come only from the armed guards, but from the men working right beside you. The system the manager built in this place is perverse. Anyone who reports an escape attempt or rebellion receives the jackpot, stop being a body cook and become a guard. The guy next to you would sell out his own brother just to stop smelling like death and carry a rifle. Now you have 2 options. Hand over the phone to the manager, which would guarantee you a decent dinner and temporary security, or risk immediate execution for a shot at freedom. You look at the barrel of acid, smell the toxic fumes, and decide that you have had enough. You continue with your work as if nothing happened. You hide the phone under a pile of bloody clothes that you must take to the collection point. You walk across the yard, feeling the guard's eyes on the back of your neck. Upon reaching the trash pile, you fake a trip. You fall face first onto the old rags. In that moment of confusion, while you are on the ground, you shove the phone inside your underwear, pressing it against your belly, and praying that the waistband elastic is strong enough. You get up cursing about the fall, acting totally natural. No one suspects a thing. The shift ends, and you have managed to get the device out of the chop house without being detected. However, there is a huge problem. You are locked in the barracks where there is no privacy, surrounded by potential snitches who watch you in the dark. You cannot find a moment to use the phone. While you rack your brain thinking about how to use the phone without being discovered, luck, or perhaps destiny, decides to smile at you in a macabre way. You are assigned the task of digging the new pit to pour the soup of the day. It is your chance. While you haul dirt, you take advantage of the dark mounds and the shadows of the night to move a few meters away. With trembling hands, you dial 911. You whisper your situation with a cracking voice. The operator asks you to keep the line open as long as possible to triangulate the signal. You agree. You leave the phone hidden under some dense bushes and cover it with dry leaves, praying that the battery holds out and the signal remains constant. You return to the barracks with your heart in your throat. That night in your dirty bed, you do not sleep. You only pray that the police arrive before you are turned into liquid. The next morning, the sound of an engine wakes you up. It is not the supply truck. You spy through a crack in the wood, and your heart skips a beat. It is a police cruiser. You see the manager talking to an officer at the entrance. They are far away, but you manage to catch fragments of the conversation. The manager laughs, relaxed, convincing the officer that the call was a sick joke from some competitor or a disgruntled employee. The policeman seems to believe him, nods and turns around to get into his car. Panic floods you. Your only chance at life is leaving. You take a deep breath, step back a few paces, and throw yourself with all your might against the barracks window. The glass shatters. The shards cut your skin, and blood runs down your arms, but you do not feel pain, only desperation. You fall to the ground outside and scream for help at the top of your lungs. The policeman stops. He sees you covered in blood and dirt. Immediately, he draws his weapon and points it at the manager, signaling with his free hand for you to run toward him. You run, crying tears of pure happiness. Finally, the nightmare is over. You arrive panting next to the officer and start vomiting the whole truth. You tell him about the acids, the dismembered bodies, the slavery, all the horror of that cursed place. But then you witness an image that would freeze hell over. The officer listens to your story, looks at the manager, and with a terrifying calm, lowers his weapon. He turns to the criminal and says in a tired voice, "Control your people, buddy. My promotion ceremony is next week, and I do not want scandals or extra paperwork." The world stops. The manager changes his expression from fright to one of servile submission. He apologizes profusely for the inconvenience and promises that this month's envelope will be much heavier to make up for the trouble. Seeing that the officer is satisfied, the manager pulls out his gun to execute you right there. But the policeman coughs loudly, a dry sound of disapproval. He shakes his head and says that after all, he is an officer of the law and does not have the stomach to see an innocent man die right under his nose. He asks him to clean up his trash when he is no longer present. The manager slaps his forehead, feigning shame for his lack of manners. He puts the gun away and orders his goons to drag you away. They will take you to the supply warehouse. He promises you that as soon as the officer leaves, they will give you a slow and painful death, so that you serve as an example to the others. As they drag you toward the darkness, you see the cruiser drive away, taking your last hope with it. Lying in the damp darkness of the warehouse, you await your execution. Your mind treacherous projects vivid images of your body dissolving in acid. The desperation is such that you try to bite your tongue to bleed out and deprive them of the pleasure of torturing you, but the survival instinct is stronger than your bravery. You simply cannot do it. You look for a way out with the frantic gaze of a cornered rat. You only see stacked bags of caustic soda. But then you notice a detail that gives you a glimmer of hope. One of the bags is torn, and combined with an old leak in the roof, has been dripping onto the wooden corner of the structure for a long time. Chemistry has done its silent work. The wood is rotten black and falling apart. With a strength you did not know you had, you hit and rip out the rotten planks, opening a jagged hole. You try to pass through, sticking your head and shoulders in, but the hole is too narrow. You get stuck at the hips. Destiny seems to laugh in your face. Right at that moment, you hear heavy footsteps approaching, and the metallic sound of a key turning in the lock. Panic floods you. You do not think, you just act. You push with brutal violence, ignoring the sharp pain of the chemical-soaked splinters, digging into your skin, burning and tearing your flesh. With one last agonizing push, your body gives way, and you fall to the other side onto the wet dirt outside. You get up staggering, bleeding and burning, and you throw yourself into the thick of the jungle. Behind you, you hear the manager's furious screams, cursing your name, and worse yet, the sound that makes your blood run cold, the frantic barking of hunting dogs that have been released. Fear injects pure adrenaline into your veins, and you run toward the darkness faster than you have ever run in your life. You have no idea how long you have been running through the jungle. The deep wounds caused by the broken glass and the rotten wood soaked in caustic soda have made you lose too much blood. Your body has reached its absolute limit. Your legs weigh a ton, and your vision starts to blur, turning the path into a dark and blurry tunnel. You do not know how, but your survival instincts drag you to an old dirt road. Suddenly, a blinding light floods your back. You freeze. It is that cursed cop's vehicle. You break down completely. You feel that all your suffering, every drop of spilled blood, has only served to buy you a slower death. But instead of executing you, the officer opens the passenger door and gives you a curt signal to get in. Rage invades you. You scream at him with hatred, telling him to kill you right there, to have the decency not to hand you over like an animal. The policeman looks at you with an expressionless face, cold as ice. He tells you clearly, you can get in and gamble on your life, or you can stand there until the hunting dogs rip your throat out. You have no choice. You get in the vehicle. He orders you to keep the door ajar and let your wounded arm hang out, allowing your blood to drip onto the dirt road while he speeds toward the highway. To your astonishment, the man you thought was a monster is saving you. As the car devours miles, he breaks the silence. He explains that he despises the drug dealers as much as you do, that he dreams of burning that whole place down and saving the innocents. But those are childish dreams. The truth is raw and simple. He and you are the same. Both are terrified human beings who just want to live one more day. He chose corruption to avoid dying, just like you chose cooking bodies to avoid being one of them. Upon reaching the highway, he spots a semi-truck. He turns on the red and blue lights, forcing the driver to pull over under the excuse of a paper check. He turns to you one last time. He tells you to take the opportunity to climb onto the roof or hide among the cargo. He warns you that his help ends here, because sooner or later the managers will follow the blood trail to this point. With your heart in your throat, you jump out of the car and climb onto the truck without being seen. The vehicle starts up and you move away toward the horizon. The wind hits your face, scrubbing away the smell of death. You have escaped hell. Congratulations, you have survived.